I would say over time we're going to increase and increase and increase. They don't have water. We do. And we have great temperatures and great soils to grow blackberries. We just haven't caught on. We were the cabbage people. Now we're going to be blackberry people in there. So that way you can make sure you've got a heavy crop of blackberries if you follow those systems. Okay. I missed something. Oh, culture of blackberries. Okay. Mulching is very important on them because you don't want them to have competition. So a lot of the commercial people will put plastic down until the second or third year just to hold the moisture in and let them get started. Then they pull the plastic up. Sawdust works good. Any chips work fantastic on blackberries because you can get chips free. Stop by those people chipping on the side of the road and bring me a load. Chips work really, really good and last a long time. Chips are acid forming, so you have to do a soil test every once in a while. Fertilizing the young ones, you're going to put about 3 to 4 ounces of a complete fertilizer down around 12 inches of that hill. We've got 4 or 5, so we're not letting them make a matted row like strawberries. We're going to kill everything in between that 8 to 8 feet because you want to be able to let that berry come out and make a bush. Then another bush over here, another bush over here. So you're fertilizing right around that cluster of 4 to 5 canes. Okay? What else? Oh, if you're into tilling, you can till blackberries. But, you don't want to get too deep to control the weeds. We used to grow blackberries commercially with tillers. We would till in between the row and then, just like you would potatoes, and you throw the soil up on there. We've gotten away from that because a lot of the feeder roots are in the top 4 inches, 6 inches sometimes. So you don't want to go much more than 6 inches if you're going to be tilling in the garden. And what we do a lot of times in the home garden is we have our berries on the end. And then you've got the next row in between. So you're tilling up pretty close to that. So you want to be careful and not get too close to those berries when you're tilling in your garden. Because you don't want a perennial plant. You don't want your blackberries 2 miles over here and your garden's over here. So usually we put them at the edge or on the side, something like that. In there. Okay. Raspberries. Most of the culture is the same. I just want to mention again, I think I told y'all that you don't need to trellis the black ones. They're very upright. And if you're pruning them back to that 4 foot, they're really going to stay erect. If you let them get longer, they will lean over. But black raspberries can be kept pretty much down in there. The most productive part of a red raspberry is the upper third of the cane. Black raspberries, if we trim them, they'll put them even down low to the ground. But the red raspberry species itself will do a high end. So if you're letting that red raspberry get this tall and you're short as me, I don't want to pick up here. I want to pick here. So in the summertime, like we were talking, that's when I would prune them. Okay, like Himrod is red. Himrod is a red one. And it is a good big fat red one. It's a primal cane. It's one that the cane this year will produce the next year on it. But it'll put its berries way at the top. So you want to make sure you prune it down to where the limbs are down here to where we're pruning in our size. If you're a 7 foot tall person, who cares? You can reach them. But you're short like me, you got to do that. Dormer red has to be trellised. It'll lay down. It works really good for us, good flavor, not quite as tart as the Heritage, and it's one that's recommended. I've already talked about Heritage in Caroline. Okay, any questions about caneberries? Let's go to blueberries because it's totally different. Forget everything I've ever told you about small fruits because blueberries are different. I'm going to give a lecture this evening about growing blueberries in 10 times more detail than we've got here. And then I am doing a pruning class tomorrow, and I have a few more spaces. If anybody wants to drive all the way to Henderson County, you're welcome to do that. You can just check with me. But it's mostly commercial people, but you prune them exactly the same, so it's no big deal. Okay, we're going to go over the same thing with the blueberries. This is my big thing. It's my forte is blueberries. It's one of those crops that I have really never took off in the mountains. It's easy to do mechanical harvesting. It's hard for us to compete with acres and acres and acres down in the east, but we can compete. They're primarily grown in our region for tailgate market, Primarily, we're now getting up, so we're getting a few wholesale. These blackberry folks are now putting in some pretty good patches of blueberries and are selling them, but they can be easily mechanical harvested in there. They're beautiful in the landscape. If you're wanting an edible landscape, blueberries are beautiful. They have a beautiful fall color, anywhere from a bright yellow to a dark red, according to your variety. And it can be shaped into a beautiful shrub. Makes a great hedge, in your yard. It's very long-lived. They'll be heavily productive for 30 to 40 years if you're pruning them regularly. I actually saw my blueberry patch that I planted in 1979, and I was like, okay, I'll go look at my house I sold many at my farm. I'll drive by there. I'll be darned if the blueberries weren't still there, and they were pruning them the way I taught them when I sold the farm, and they were just very productive in there. We'll talk about varieties in a minute, but there is very important to do site preparation on blueberries in our region. You've got to change the soil here to have heavy production. And that's what you want. You want big fat berries, and you want good production. They're going to grow, and they're going to sit there, and they're going to do fine if you just plop them in the ground, because they're native to us. There's 17 different native varieties in our area, even buckberries. I love to eat buckberries if you ever had them. High bush and rabbit eye are the two primary ones we grow in the region. If you read anything and we'll get into more detail in a minute, they're going to tell you only grow high bush in the mountains. I say that's bunk. I said that was bunk in 1979, and I grew rabbit eye. And the reason I grew rabbit eye, it's more tolerant, but it's specific to elevation. If you're above 2,500 foot elevation, you're going to have freeze out. You're going to have freeze damage. They can't take less than 10 degrees, okay? Your rabbit eye can. But look how productive that's not here. You're looking at 10 to 12 pounds per plant after 2 years on a rabbit eye, 5 to 6 on a high bush. High bush is very intolerant to soil differences, so that's why rabbit eye is much better for homeowners. Most of the extension agents across this district are going to tell you to do high bush. And the reason why they do that is because that's what's recommended. It's what the research has done in there. Okay, they're low in calories, high in nutrition, just awesome. They're a good source of fiber. That's why we want blueberries. They call it a superfood, I think is what you'll see out there in the market because of the wonderful properties they have and urinary tract infections. I drink blueberry coffee. That's what I had this morning. I drink blueberry tea. I love it. Especially when you've got a cold. Pineapple just gets on my nerves. Pineapple is an expectorant, so I've been drinking hot pineapple and blueberry tea to help me with my problem. The origin was probably domesticated in the 20th century. Now Maine blueberries are totally different than our blueberries. They're a low bush. We grow a high bush and a rabbit eye here. They were commercialized in 1900 in New Jersey. Northern high bush is quite different. You can buy those varieties. We now have all kinds of crosses. We now even have one that's pink called pink lemonade. Tastes like crap to me because I'm used to I like powder blue. I like some of these big fat ones. I've gotten spoiled. You go over on the mountain over here and get some of those small natives, and you'll never go back because the concentration of flavonoids and alkaloids in those are wonderful. Low bush doesn't do very good for us. The low bush cranberries will, but the blueberries just don't really survive good for us. They like that cold temperature that we don't have. A rabbit eye has a light color, kind of a pink blush on the immature fruit. That's the difference in a rabbit eye and a high bush. A high bush will be more green and then turn blue. So if you've got a blueberry plant, please write the variety name down. It really makes a difference in how you take care of it. There are too many varieties out there, too many species, and you as a master gardener have a great influence in the public because they're going to call you. They're going to say, I've got a problem in my blueberry. What kind of blueberries do you have? I don't know. I bought them at Lowe's. Well, you don't know how to advise someone if they don't know what they've got. Do you have high bush? I don't know. They turn blue. That's the question you're going to get as a master gardener. in there. But that's a good way to tell the difference in these two types of small fruits. And we'll go about another 15 minutes, then we'll have a break, okay? All right, because I love blueberries. They're productive heavily for 20 to 30 years. I totally disagree with this. They can be productive for 50 years if you're pruning them properly and maintaining your soil. And I'm going to teach you how to do that this morning. You know, that's just what we said back when I was in college, and that's what's still in the books. But I'm telling you, you know, with the regeneration pruning, I was taught to prune differently than I teach now when I was in college in the early 70s. We won't tell exactly what year, but, you know, and then I'm beginning to feel my age in there. Mostly what we get if you're shipping is bare-root plants, so you've got to do them in the spring. It does better than fall. Most of what you're going to get. The 4-H group here, I think, don't y'all have just high bush, I believe it is? Because they have Duke. I forgot the varieties, but they're excellent varieties. I actually buy them. You know, my thoughts are in varieties, yes, buy them. And please support 4-H with their variety stuff. But, you know, you're going to get an earlier spread out. So I have high bush to get my early, and then I'll have rabbit eye. So you're going to have a long harvest season if you do high bush and rabbit eye. And then inside high bush and inside the rabbit eye, you've got early and late. So if you do like a high bush Duke, that's an early one. You know, then you get a high bush Blu-ray mid-season. So then you can go to a Premier or a Climax in the rabbit eye, then that comes in next. And then you go into a Tiff Blue, which is later, and then a Low Tide, which is later. So you can actually have a month of wonderful blueberries coming in. And then all coming at the same time, and you're like, you're sick of them and trying to put them all up. I am a canner. I like to can things.
The rabbit eye don't do well over 3,000.
Yes, 2,500. I planted them right at 2,800, and what would happen is you're going to have a little freeze out. You know, you'll have a little freeze back on there because they can't take that low temperature.
And you still have them if you're 3,000 feet and
oh yeah. Back. Just understand that you're going to have years that the blooms are going to get frozen on them. You know, okay? High bush can handle low temperature. That's why they're recommended for the mountains. It's hard to say, you know, oh, we do with rabbit eye, and as soon as you get a rabbit eye and you're at 3,500 foot elevation and you lose the crop that year, you're going to hate extension. That's why we say that. You know, if I was going to grow rabbit eye above 2,500 foot elevation, go with the Tiff Blue or Premier. That is a little bit more tolerant. You know, it's earlier. Premier is a little earlier, so it's going to literally hold in there a little bit. In there. But you get more crop and you get a bigger. But if you do the soil right, high bush does fine. Okay, in there. Blueberries grow in flushes. You can have as much as 3 flushes of growth in a season. So blueberries aren't like other plants. They'll grow and stop, grow and stop. It gets dry in July. They stop growing. You'll have multiple growths on a blueberry plant. The same thing's true with their flowers. You'll have a flower bud, and that flower bud can make as much as 10 buds on it. So you can cut 50% of your blooms off of blueberries and still have the same production, because it's going to say, woohoo, I got plenty of roots and I got plenty of nutrition in my roots. This idiot's cut all my blooms off, and then all of a sudden it's going to go, wow. So you're going to have bigger berries, the same quantity. So it's important to prune a blueberry every single year if you're wanting consistent production. Okay? My secretary, when I first moved to the Piedmont 100,000 years ago, she said, will you come out and work on my blueberry plants? And I said, if you'll stay on the porch and not get off the porch, and I'll park my car at the other end, I'll prune them. But if you start chasing me, I'm going to run. And that's what happened. She started screaming at me. And I said, okay. She said, you're going to buy me blueberries this year. You have ruined my blueberry plants. This is, I'll tell you her name, and I can't think of her name. Linda Dunn. She's retired now. Well, I said, I promise you I'll buy you as many pounds as you want. Of course, I had plenty on my farm. But if you don't have a bumper crop of blueberries, well, she was sold. She had twice the amount of blueberries, and they weren't even BBs. They were big fat ones. So she'd tell that story over and over. I worked with her 20 some years. She would tell the story over and over again.
When you first plant it, like the first year, do you have
Yes, and we're going to talk about that in detail in just a second, okay? I'll get into that in a lot more detail. Her question was, when you first get the blueberries, do you pull the blooms off? Yes. You don't let them produce the first year, and they will, especially if you're buying, excuse me, if you're buying from a reputable place, like our 4-H folks over the district buy extremely good quality plants. So you're going to have buds on there. You want to get rid of those. You want them to put a really good root down because blueberries are very shallow rooted. You can dig up a 30-year-old blueberry and move it because it's not going to go more deep than that. So it's easy to control that soil right around that plant in there. So high bush is going to give you an 8-pound yield, and then a rabbit eye is going to give you a 12 to 25-pound yield. I got a 27-pound yield off of my rabbit eyes when I was growing them commercially. But I was intensively growing my blueberries. They never wanted for water. I had drip irrigation. So if you can get up there to a high level on that. Okay, types to grow. Coastal Plain and Piedmont, both rabbit eye and high bush work great. Mostly what's done in the market in the southeast of North Carolina are high bush and southern high bush. And everybody's like, well, why are they growing them? Because they can beat the market. High bush is earlier in a warm area, but they have a muck soil where they can really get the pH down. They work hard on their soils in there. The mountains are high bush, and I put in here above 2,500 foot elevation. Definitely, if you're going to have consistent production, go with your high bush. If you're below that, you can grow your rabbit eyes. High bush are going to give you fruit May, June for us here, okay, in Haywood County. Rabbit eye, June and July. So you can see, you can grow both. You've got an expanse of 2 to 3 months of berries. You know, you need cross-pollination more with rabbit eye than with high bush. And on that. So it works really, really good. And actually, insect has to touch every bloom of a blueberry or it will not produce. No wind pollination whatsoever with the blueberry. Even some of our blueberries, you know, if you look at the bloom, it's kind of draping. I think we had a picture I meant to show you here. See how it drapes? See this bloom, how it drapes right here? That end of it right there where the insect has to go up in, a lot of times it's closed. You know, you look at a climax. Climax is an early blooming one. Climax is almost closed at the end. And honeybees can't pollinate that one very well. A bumblebee will drill a hole. Bumblebees are better pollinators. It's just not a large population. We prefer honeybees for our pollination because there's a lot of them. But on your blueberries. Okay. Environmental preferences. This is very important. Full sun for full production. 50% shade does fine. It just reduces. The more shade, the more reduction in production you've got. You'll see them in the native setting. A lot of them will be, in shade. That's where they grow. They're an understory shrub in there. They have to have acid soil. If they don't have acid soil, they'll sit there. I planted a bunch of blueberry plants in the Master Gardener Gardens. I paid for them, and then I got all hotty-toddy and went off to Oregon and consulted out there for 4 years. Came back to Wake Forest, worked there for a little while, and then they recruited me back into Extension. I walked out there in their demonstration garden. I said, the blueberry plants are the same size as they were when I left 7 years ago. Have y'all not taken care of these? Oh, yeah, we prune them every year and all kind of stuff. I said, what about the soil? You know, have you taken a soil test? No, we took a soil test when we started. There was a guy that was here, you know, that made us take a soil test. You know, that was me, you know, and we adjusted the soil. Well, they were using compost as their mulch. Compost is neutral, 7 pH. You're putting a 7 pH on a 4. What happens? It combines, it raises the pH. So every year they were just the beautiful plants, but they were just that big, you know, and they were rabbit eye. They should have been 30 feet, not 3 feet. I put sulfur on them that season. The next season they were 7 foot tall. We had massive amounts of sprouts in there. You know, I put enough on there to take it down 1 point. The second year